Good afternoon. We're going to talk about monsters cards. Many wild hunt. Much frost. There's just, it's just so interesting. For a long time, it seemed like maybe Gwent was reluctant to really embrace wild hunt as a part of monsters culture, you know? And it looks like they are getting a full wild hunt serving. Did I almost pull a Mogwai there? I think I may have. Sometimes the H, it catches the back of your throat. Anyway. Really, really cool art. Really, really cool art. But before we jump into Auberon and all of the amazing wild hunt things that he'll be able to do, we should probably talk about a number of bronze wild hunt units, of which there are already 4. There's already 4 wild hunt units that are added to the pool of what Auberon is able to do. If you just saw here on the opening screen, just really quick, Auberon in his 3 forms, as he is the evolving card for monsters. This one is so gruesome, I don't know how I can even keep it on the screen. But he cares about playing Wild Hunt, and he has a create pool for the Wild Hunt, and then is further boosted. Whenever you play a Wild Hunt unit, boost it by 1. Yeah. And if you are really into the idea of getting the create value from this, I mean, this is kind of a weird one, but you can Death Shadow this card. Like anything with a deploy effect, I kind of look at that, but I don't think there's a lot of huge upside to that compared to what else you could do. So I don't think you'd want to Death Shadow this card necessarily, but you could. Anyway, he's all about bronze wild hunts, and at the time of his reveal, that pool of cards was there weren't very many. You had Wild Hunt Rider, which is confirmed. It's confirmed to pull all copies now. It'll pull all copies. So you can use Auberon to pull 3 riders. And then there's the Wild Hunt Hound, which is an engine. Wild Hunt Warrior, which, you know, assuming that Auberon is the highest unit on the board, you're getting your 12 points that, like 12 points that a lot of these evolving cards kind of give you at the upfront offer is 12 points plus their ongoing effect or their triggered effect. So in this case, you kind of get your 12 points plus the boost, which is nice. And then the Navigator, same idea. Now, that doesn't seem like a very exciting pool at all for an evolving card. Maybe for a card like Brathens or maybe a card like Treant Protector. Would we be satisfied with 3? But no, we don't have to be satisfied with 3 because it looks like we might be getting 4 or 5 new Wild Hunt units. One of the bronze cards shown was a special card. So that's it's a Wild Hunt card, but it's a special card. So let's go back. So now we're going to go back to the other cards that were shown here. First off, let's talk about the Aen Elle Conquerer. Aen Elle Conqueror has Veil, is 7 strength, 4 provision card. You heard me. 7 strength, 4 provision card. On deploy, destroy self. But if you have devotion, don't destroy self. So if you are playing with no neutral cards and you play this card, it will live. Meaning that you have the glory, the absolute glory and triumph of playing a 7 strength, no drawback unit for 4 points. And you ask yourself the question, has it always been about that big white number at the top? But I mean, realistically, there is a number of things that this card can do. First of all, one of my favorite things is in a situation with like Duchess Informant or whatever, your opponent can't actually play this card when they see it from like Imperial Diplomacy or whatever. Like, they just can't play it at all. So I like cards like that can kind of mess with Nilfgaard's options. That's like the lowest thing. Also, it's a card that will thrive all the way up to 7 at the 4 provision mark. So you already had Noonwraith, Necker Warrior, and I don't think there was something at 5. No, we don't have a 5 strength 4P unit, but we do have a 6 strength and now a 7 strength 4P unit. So that's pretty cool. But it also it's sort of putting the puzzle together for us here, because when we look at Devotion, you can see how they're being supported right now. Devotion has sort of like this, what's the word I want to look for? Like, they can anchor themselves on very good value 4P cards. Like, they never have, like, their weakest slot is strong. And it's not always Devotion, because Tursark Invader kind of is this card, but isn't a Devotion card. And Angry Mob is also kind of like this card for Nilfgaard, but is also not, instead of going with Devotion, they went with the keyword that they have. But with stuff like Skellige has the keyword, right? But Monsters doesn't have a keyword, so we would imagine that things like Monsters, although Oak Critters here, Oak Critters is scoia'tael's card like this, like a 4P card that with Devotion should get you a lot. So there are still lots of variation. Like a lot of the time, I feel whenever I check out the comments about the evolving cards and seeing people say stuff like lazy design, when you can see clear variations in a lot of the other cycles now, like the 4-point Devotion cards, the Echo cards, the support cards with new keywords. Like, there are a lot of subtle variations that really do care about the rest of the set. And I don't think there's anything lazy about the cards. You know, the meat and potatoes, right? The bronze cards? Let's go. Like, if the Devotion cards are all kind of similar, it would be better than, like, one Devotion card being, like, absolute unplayable garbage. Or another Devotion card being OP. It just kind of offers you 12 points and a good reason to go for Devotion and to build. And you don't have to do it, but it's like if you go singleton with Merchants of Ophir and you had Radia, you know, she was really strong for a long time, so you saw her in a lot of different decks. And, you know, we're going to see the evolving cards in the same case. So yeah, so this is Monsters version. So between the Invader, the Mutants Maker was the one for Syndicate. So these roughly 7-point drawback free, I really want to play this proactively, strong card at 4 provisions. Devotion decks are getting that reward. And this one is the most monstery thing ever. It is basically it's a strict upgrade on Frost Giant, if you could look at it like that. It's just 7 strength. I mean, I don't even know why I'm spending so much time talking about it. But it's just a 7 strength card for 4P. And that's just, you know, if any faction had to receive this variation of support, it's got to be Monsters. This elf is not fucking around. And then we have the Wild Hunt Bruiser. Oh, baby, the art for these cards are okay to me. Okay to me. More stuff from these brutal, brutal warriors from Witcher 3, Wild Hunt. Just skulls everywhere. Are we the baddies? Wild Hunt Bruiser is a 5 provision, 5 strength unit with 1 armor. On deploy, move an enemy unit to the other row, and if it moves into a row affected by frost, damage it by 2. This guy is officially a bruiser. He's a tank. I mean, he's a Wild Hunt unit, and it seems like that's going to matter for, you know, a number of things. It seems like it's going to matter more for Auberon being on the board right now, but we will see, because there's also frost stuff. Like, they have like a nice little interwoven thing happening here. But the Bruiser is he's creeping on the Drowner a little bit here. Whereas the Drowner, you want the movement effect, you always get the damage and you get to thrive. The Bruiser kind of says, well, you're probably playing a pretty good deck anyway. So movement's pretty good too, and people are going to play out of that weather, so let's move them into it, and that's good too. Plus, you don't have to pay like this upfront risk cost of like maybe this Drowner is just going to die because it's so weak. The Bruiser hangs out. He's not even inviting to hit with because you get -1 on anything that targets it. So, I mean, this guy is low-key just an annoying card. I can see him doing he's just going to be a very annoying card, good tempo, and very upsetting to strategy, like just simply something like Hawker Smuggler, whatever like that. Just upsetting all of these strategies. And I'm sure it seems like a core card to me. I definitely play it if I planned on playing a bunch of Frost, and we've already seen 3 cards that make Frost. Well, 4 now. 4 cards that make Frost, and 2 of them are bronzes, so that's really 5 cards that make Frost. Plus, Frost isn't like new to the game or anything. So it could be just this could be a bunch of long, cold rounds against these dudes. And it looks like he's laughing, right? It looks like he's kind of laughing at you. Like the way the angle is and the way the skull, those mandibles. So these cards are just, I can see them being core cards. Like, before, you would have to think of what would be the best thing to play these with. Well, I might want to play some Thrive stuff or whatever, but you might be not sure. I want to run Natural Selection or maybe a Bruxa. But I mean, I don't know. Just playing something at 7 seems better than thriving sometimes. Now we have Nalfar's Taskmaster. Another Wild Hunt unit, another 5 provision, 5 strength unit. On deploy, purify an enemy unit. But if you have Dominance, which this guy is already getting you to 5, purify any unit instead. So this is a sheer upgrade to a Peller, and something that monsters have pretty much needed for a while, as their best purify option was Queen of the Night. And because of that, they were unable to really take advantage of cards like the Penitent, because Queen of the Night occupies that 7 provision slot. So having a bronze purify in most cases is something that you could argue every faction could make good use of. Not every faction has it. Northern Realms doesn't have one. They do have Cursed Knight, though. But it's not quite what you're looking for, because it's not an offensive purify for Northern Realms. So a card like this, really, you just have to look at it and value it almost exactly like a better Ryad Sapper who fulfills the same role. Only in this case, the default ability for Nalfar's Taskmaster is offensive purify. The conditional purify is then the option for a defensive purify. But he's so strong, like you play him with Auberon on the board, it's already 6, or you already have 6 in the first place. As long as you're able to maintain dominance, you should have just the flexibility. The card offers a lot of flexibility in a lot of matchups. Syndicate, scoia'tael, Nilfgaard. So, I mean, it's kind of just, in a vacuum, this card looks like you don't really see synergy, but you do see support. You see support in the way monsters don't have, and you see that this is the archetype that's getting it. The dominance archetype, the Wild Hunt archetype. So, pretty cool. Pretty cool. And then the final Wild Hunt bronze that we have seen today. Very interesting in how it's statted, too. So this is Nalfar's Crew. 5 provisions for a 1 strength Wild Hunt unit. Perhaps an elf as well. I don't know if elf's ever going to matter. On deploy, spawn Frost for 2 turns on an enemy row. And at the end of turn, if there is Frost on the opposite row, boost self by 1. So this guy plays for 2 and is an engine and plays the Frost on the opposing side of the board. If you can protect this guy at all, he will do serious work. But he's very fragile to begin with. But up front, he does give you a good amount of value, especially if you've already played and protected something like Eredin. So, and it's on the opposite roll, so he's the opposite row, so it's kind of like a pseudo diet, strangely monsters greatsword in a way. I mean, not really, of course, but the way that it cares about the opposite row, it cares about what's happening on the opposite row, but it still has this deploy effect which supports itself. It's a super cool card. I like it a lot. these bronze core cards, like it looks like we're just seeing all of the new deck. I mean, it's going to be some slight variations in some of the existing cards, but I see a lot of initial support. And what I am most interested about as we move forward is we've already seen one change to weather. Are there going to be any other changes to weather? Because now we see weather effects for a different amount of turns, which I find very interesting. And then that leads us to Auberon. So Auberen King, deploy, spawn and play a random bronze wild hunt unit, and then it evolves in round 2. Deploy, create, and play a wild hunt unit. And then if you are in devotion, no neutral cards, in round 3 you have Auberon the Conqueror, who, like his evolving counterparts, touches down as a 6 strength veiled unit, which creates and plays a bronze wild hunt unit. And now whenever you play a wild hunt unit, that wild hunt unit is boosted by 1. So the points don't go on to Auberon, they go on to the units. We do see a lot of similarities between the evolving units, but here the variation more about the strength of the units specifically. So I think that this card is super fun. This is what I expected Eredin to do if they were going to bring Eredin back, because Eredin's old leader ability was play a bronze wild hunt unit. So I do like that effect is kind of back here, and I think that create is usually reliable enough. And I mean, now that we see these wild hunt units, they are all fairly good. The Purify one creates a situation where you can create the answer, I suppose. So, but that's like the only one. It's not like there's another wild hunt guy who can destroy an artifact or something. So Auberon does have a situation where he can create the answer against a poison, a lock, a defender in some situations. So that is probably going to be one of the bigger things you want to use him for. The sooner you play him, the more value you get. So you're probably just fine going ahead and just playing, you play 14 points with the Aen Elle Conquerer. Here we go. I mean, there are some bad options, I suppose, but if you know you have dominance, all of your options are like 6 or better. You get the Wild Hunt Hound maybe, but then you've at least made an engine that's already ticking. So, like, playing Auberon, if I need a tempo, this is like the card that I'd probably be most fine with playing early, I think. Because I don't see an entire strategy built around this. Most of the evolving cards they just seem like giant point totems. And I think that is very much the intention for these cards. But yeah, there's an air of unpredictability here. But kind of like the king is on the battlefield. This is like in Magic the Gathering when you have a lord. Reynard Odo kind of feels like a lord card as well. But specifically, Auberon feels like a lord because he only cares about Wild Hunt. So all Wild Hunt units get a boost while he's on the board. That's what we call a Wild Hunt Lord. And I think that's pretty cool because not all the cards that are being released that care about archetypes are doing this in the same way. Okay, so I just want to point out, Gwent saying this was supposed to be Flake's reveal, but he's going through a rough phase and more important things to take care of. We wish him the best and a full, quick recovery. Boy, do we ever. Do we ever. A brand new card for monsters here. A very bittersweet reveal. But it is the Echo card. We have ourselves a 10 provision. A 10 provision spell, I assume. Doesn't look like it's organic. I'm not really sure what this is classified as, but it's an Echo card and it spawns Frost on both enemy rows for 3 turns. And it's an Echo card. Now, we just got finished talking about all the ways that you can just keep a lot of Frost on the opponent's board and that it wouldn't be that hard now that you've got 2 crewmen that do it, 2 Red Riders that will do it as well. And also new Eredin was doing it, as well as I guess all the old cards that would do it. But now you have this one, which says, hey, don't worry about playing Avalok or Triss Frost or anything. How about we just give you this card that just gives you 12 points of value potentially twice and fulfills almost everything that you want to do because we've already seen an engine that cares about this. We've already seen a movement card that cares about this. And we already know that Frost is always building towards Monster's dominant strategy. This is a very good Echo card. The only reason why this card is maybe will be outshadowed by another Echo card is because it doesn't actually tutor a unit or create a unit. But what this does is significant. Round 1, you got to fight against this, knowing that it's coming in round 2. It's like so good, right? You just have to, you still have to play into it. And because it's an Echo card, it's going to feel risk-free. It's going to feel fairly risk-free to punish and kind of, you play Ardgeth when there's one unit on the board. Your opponent plays another unit probably on the same row, and then you come on in with your Wild Hunt Bruiser, and now you've got all your weather value for the next little bit. And then they have to pick a row. It's going to be, you're always going to have to fight against it, and it's going to feel old school, dudes. The weather didn't go away, and I don't think Frost is going to hang out. I don't know, man. I think that the long game for Monsters and the push game for Monsters just, it's going to go into a different direction. They were already going high. They're already going wide. They were already going burst round, bleeding, never pass. They don't have a lot of, their last say has always been so strong, but man, this is the kind of attrition that they've been missing from the Monsters stuff. Very cool stuff. Well, we got a little 7 cards revealed. And yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. I'll catch you after the weekend for sure for some new Northern Realms reviews and my reveal card, which will be, I'll officially be able to unlock the information at midnight Monday, carrying over to Tuesday in Warsaw. So 6 p.m. my time on Monday is when we get to talk about the Northern Realms Echo card.